Bonjour tout le monde. Premièrement, je souhaitais remercier les gens présents dans la salle. Vraiment, c'est presque émotif de voir, d'être devant un auditoire réel et non pas seulement que virtuel. Mais aussi, bonjour aux gens qui sont branchés peut-être du côté de l'Europe. Donc, on tient à vous dire un bonjour et à vous remercier d'être présents tous ce midi. Donc, je me nomme premièrement Nathalie Pellerin, je suis la directrice adjointe aux études qui est responsable, entre autres, du programme d'orthèse visuelle. Et puis, je suis très fière aujourd'hui de me trouver devant vous. Le département d'orthèse visuelle, c'est un département qui est très créatif et dynamique. Et de concert avec la mobilité étudiante, il y avait quand même des projets de mobilité qui étaient en cours avant cette pandémie-là. Et non, le département s'est relevé les manches et a décidé de faire vivre la mobilité autrement. Donc, c'est super intéressant. Et c'est aussi donné comme mission de nous faire voyager en mars, donc au mois de mars. Cette année, mars est officiellement ici au collège le mois du design. Donc, c'est avec plaisir qu'on vous accueille à notre première activité pour ce mois du design. Nous voyagerons géographiquement puisque nous aurons l'occasion de faire une escapade virtuelle dans 3 pays différents, chacun d'eux révélant un éminent créateur ou créatrice de monture. Aujourd'hui, les États-Unis, la semaine prochaine, la France et l'Italie pour la semaine du 31 mars. Mais au-delà des frontières, nous voyagerons également dans l'imagination et le cœur de ces créateurs. Vous pourrez faire la découverte de personnalités inspirantes qui vous feront voir les montures d'un tout autre œil. De leur tête à vos mains, vous connaîtrez l'art de la monture. Vos connaissances acquises en classe seront mises en contexte sous un angle nouveau. Et je ne parle pas ici d'angle d'incidence, de chasse ou pantoscopique. Demandez-moi pas d'expliquer ce bout-là, je ne pourrais pas vous l'expliquer. Et qui sait, ce voyage en sera possiblement un vers le futur parce que vous y découvrirez peut-être votre propre ambition, un rêve d'avenir qui vous était jusqu'alors inconnu. Notre mois du design débute donc avec une conférence vous présentant Mme Gai Gherardi, opticienne et cofondatrice de Elle, Eyeworks, entreprise de Los Angeles fondée en 1979. Avec plus de 40 années d'expérience, cette opticienne à la créativité intuitive et audacieuse vous parlera de son parcours coloré et de sa façon de voir le monde lunetier. Elle vient d'ailleurs tout juste de recevoir un prix de l'Optical Women's Association qui a reconnu son rôle exceptionnel dans l'avancement du leadership féminin dans l'industrie de l'optique. Et en cette semaine qui débutait avec la Journée de la femme, je pense que c'est tout à fait approprié de recevoir cette personne en entrevue. L'entretien a été préenregistré et durera 50 minutes. Je tenais à remercier Sophie Bellavance, professeure au département d'orthèse visuelle, pour la traduction de l'entrevue. Cet entretien avec Mme Gherardi sera fait ou mené de main de maître, j'en suis certaine, j'ai hâte de voir le début, par Naomie Hadida, étudiante de troisième année en technique d'orthèse visuelle et gagnante du concours de conception de monture édition 2018. Naomie sera aussi disponible à la fin de la diffusion de l'entrevue pour des questions sur son expérience d'entretien avec Mme Gherardi. Alors, je vous laisse à l'entrevue et je vous remercie encore une fois de votre présence. C'est très précieux pour nous de voir qu'on est encouragé dans les initiatives du département et du programme d'orthèse. Merci.
I wanted to first off thank you so much for coming and talking with me today. And thank you to your staff in your office as well. You're in your office at the moment, so there are a lot of people working for the Elle Eyeworks brand at the moment, so we really thank you so much for coming to the Cégep Édouard Montpetit's opticianry program's Design Month. So thank you so much for coming to talk to us.
Thank you, Noam.
It's my pleasure. I wanted to maybe give a little taste of who you are and what you do. Maybe some of our students here might not know too much about Elle Eyeworks or you specifically. So I was hoping if you could just give us like a first little rundown of Gai Gherardi and who you are and what you do at Eyeworks.
Okay. So, thank you, and thank all of you for having us. We're very happy to be here with you today. So, my very best friend from high school, Barbara McReynolds, I have to credit her completely with a foray into the optical industry, in that she took a summer job in the 60s in an optical shop. And she called me within a day or two and said, "Hey, Gai, I've got the coolest gig in the world, and you're going to love it." And I thought it was funny because, there was irony for me, because Barbara had absent-mindedly bumped into a sliding glass door about the week before, and it didn't hurt her, but it was like something that didn't happen often. And I thought, my God, because I was relating it with glasses and not seeing and glass, and I just thought there was irony in it. Anyway, so I went for a job interview because we wanted to make a trip, a hitchhiking trip, actually, if you will. And we thought, okay, it's good, cool summer job. We'll do this and then we'll go. So I went for my interview, had a great, got a job, right. And the gentleman who owned the store became really a mentor to us. Within the first couple of days, he taught us how to decenter a lens, how to take facial measurements, and of course this is crash course and it all sounds hilarious, but, and then he left us. And he put me in one store and Barbara in another store, and that was the beginning. So, and that is the beginning. So Barbara and I worked for this gentleman named Mr. Rose for several years. But in the beginning, we worked for him for 2 months. Then we left on our journeys. While we were away, he wrote us letters saying, I don't know what you're doing, but when you want, if you ever come back, there's a job here for you. And that's really, what we were doing was building his business in a way that was true to us, and that is that we were holding draft resistance meetings in his stores. We were speaking about. We were using eyewear as I don't know. I'll say as a resistance. At that time, we were able to make a very thick lens and take someone out of the draft, for example, with a plus or minus 14 lens. You could make them feel very nauseous. And at that time, we knew just how many people we could, keep out, and then, or they were going to go to Canada. So,
yeah.
So this was a beginning for us, and I always talk about it because it was so meaningful, and that was the beginning. When we came back, we did go back to work with Mr. Rose, and he mentored us, in all ways. In that time, he says, he would always say to us, "Look, I know this is not what you think you're going to do for the rest of your life, but let's do this. How about if you become licensed? How about if you work towards this? How about?" And we would just go along with it because he was our employee. We respected him, and we were finding the joy from our side, with other aspects of the business. So, when that's how it began.
Well,
is that?
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I love hearing that story. My question for you in that is what, of course you guys loved it. You guys went back to Ed Rose after your hitchhiking trip, but what was it that brought you back to the shop? What was it that really connected you to opticianry? Was it the connection or, yeah?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, it was the connect. It was really, there were so many things, but the first thing is that the very first time that I put a pair of glasses on someone, and there was just a connection. You went towards them, looking them in the face, you touched their head, and you were looking them in the eyes. And there was something, I just can't tell you, that was so, magical is a word overused, but it was a very deep connection. And if you're a person who likes people or loves that connection, that was an incredible spark. And it was that for both Barbara and I. So yes, so it was deeply and absolutely profoundly that moment of like going like that, having someone's head in your hands and looking them in the eyes is marvelous. And so, along with all the other things that came with it. I mean, both Barbara and I were makers. We could, fixing something, putting a screw in, repairing something, looking at something completely bent up and bringing it back to life. There, at the time, the lab work, Barbara was completely into the lab work. I was less, just because I didn't have access to it, but everything about it was fascinating. So it was just one of those, multi-layered, beautiful connections.
Yeah, I understand that connection, that feeling, and I figured as much, that it would be about the connection with the clients, but also the tinkering, and the fact that you said that you're a maker, I think really rings a bell to me, because a lot of opticians that I know and that I love are all makers of things, or tinkerers as such. So I think it's really, really interesting that you became who you are today as this great designer of eyewear. And I know that Barbara and you ended up opening your own store in 1979. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we continued on the path of working for others, and saved our dough, and opened a store on Melrose in 1979. With the idea of changing the face of LA.
Right. Yeah.
That was our lofty notion.
And what were you hoping for with the flagship store on Melrose? Because I know that, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, well, I know that, I've read that it kind of became a community spot, and that it kind of had like a revolving door of artists and people coming through. I mean, you can talk more about the space in itself, where it was located at the time. I know it was a little bit, not necessarily like the shopping street that it is today. But yeah, what were you hoping for with the opening of the flagship?
Yeah, well, we thought, we just couldn't wait to recontextualize the way that eyewear was presented, perceived, and so that our goal really was, then a million years ago, was, we wanted it to be like an art gallery. It sounds so trite now, but that's what we wanted. And the first things that we want, so it was then about the space. It was about having clear, it was making space. It was about the negative space between glasses. It was about the repetition of something that was the same, and the space between it. So if you had, collections of eyewear and there were 5 colors, then we wanted to see those 5 colors all together, or 7 colors, or 10 colors, and we wanted to see the equal space between them. These things we obsessed on at the time, like, okay, don't put this here, and don't have, there can be nothing interrupting the purity of that, because we wanted to share that feeling of when you really started to look at these objects, how incredibly beautiful they could be. So, that was really it. So we wanted the light to be natural. We wanted the light to be natural. We wanted the space between the eyewear to show. We wanted no clutter whatsoever. And we wanted to literally frame glasses. We would have them sitting up. Now all these things are, you just take them for granted. But at that time, to put an eyeglass frame up on its end, so that it was going parallel, like, standing up, was just something people didn't do. And so, and people were at first afraid to touch everything because it was so like that. And so that was part of it also, is we juxtaposed that, where we wanted you to touch everything, but we wanted you to see it.
Right.
We wanted you to see it, like see the space, see the colors, and that was really important to us. We also wanted you to see it, and we thought that was our we wanted to share our perspective. And so in sharing that perspective, it also, as you mentioned, Naomie, our shop became a hub. I can't say that was an expectation. That was a gift. And that was that, because really we didn't, we can say all these things, we knew what we wanted to do, but we were flying by the seat of our pants. It wasn't like a goal kind of oriented where it had to accomplish this by this, by this, by then. And I've said this with you before, I think, is that Barbara said, look, if people like what we do, then we can open our door tomorrow. And really that was our goal, is that we would have enough people who liked what we do that we could open our door again tomorrow.
Right.
And so that's it. And also I will say in the beginning, right away, we, because of the city we live in, and and because of who we were attracting and who we were speaking to and what the community we were accessing, right away we used our store as a gallery. We had gallery shows, seriously curated shows, every 5 weeks in the store. The streets would be overpouring because, it's not like it is now. There weren't as many things to do. And they were huge draws, and we actually sold a lot of, important work and represented at the time. When I say represented, showed some wonderful artists and over time. So that also added to the collective spirit of what was going on at LA Eyeworks.
That's so beautiful. So you were really putting an emphasis on the art object of the frame rather than the medical sort of clinical aspect or the kind of clinical feeling that eyewear had been previously, where you just kind of had like 3 choices. I didn't live in that era, but I've heard stories where...
No, and you're saying it perfectly, Naomie. And what's really interesting about that, and you're seeing the nuance of it, is that while that was our intent, behind the scenes, we were total optical nerds. We loved we love the technology of it. We love the medical side of it. We love that fusion. And we just loved it. You wanted to wear your pocket protector with your PD ruler in it, like behind this, that was us behind the scene, because that's what we love. But so that was incredibly important to us that we were fusing those. Yeah. And another interesting point is it in the beginning, we wanted to frame them so purely as objects, as design objects, that we really kind of alienated the fashion crew. Okay. Not. And when I say that, when I say crew, really what I mean is press, but we allied ourselves and our allies were at the design press, and they loved us because that we were framing something for them that they hadn't looked at. So we would be invited to like design conference at Stanford, the conference on design at Stanford, or a conference on design here or somewhere, where we would be not invited so much to a fashion, oriented kind of event. And we were pleased. That was perfect for us.
Yeah. It's a good little, the eyewear, like, glasses is really a utilitarian object, and so I find design is always serving the utility of the object. So it would make sense for me in a way. I almost like prefer that you kind of got into the design niche rather than the fashion niche. But I have a question about your customized eyewear, because I know that at the very beginning, you and Barbara were sort of drilling holes and melting frames, and so this was before you got LA Eyeworks, the eyewear brand. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, so when we first opened our store, we were buying from what was available, and at that time, what was available were a lot of drop temples, a lot of very big logo kind of branding. It was made through design, quote unquote, designer brands that had nothing to do with the authenticity of the designer. So you would see very big fashion house names with a great big logo on it that really had no relationship to the object itself. with few exceptions. I mean, there were some gorgeous things, and I don't want to frame it that way, but for the most part, it had become just a cattle branding kind of situation, and that's what it was about. So in the beginning, we were buying what was available to us, and there wasn't much. And we decided to take the track of we would rather have from maybe one, we would find one frame from one company, and we would buy it in black because that was the only one that looked, it just seemed to resonate the frame.
Yeah.
But we would then think, okay, well, and we would buy a lot of them. And we would sandblast one, or we would drill one, or we would put stones in one, or we would do anything we could. And then we were always on the hunt for something that we could, turn into color. And so, we found some frames. We went into, vintage stock, if you will, from, American manufacturers, and found things that came in, always looking for something kind of in a neutral color that we could dye, that we could buy a lot of, and that we could tint. So that kind of began for us. We found a frame from Chiron Continental. It was called a Muser. We found it in a color called Moonseed, which was the most really, it was, how beige could something be? But it was a backdrop for the most, it took dye in the most incredible way. So we would dye it, do the same thing, sandblast dye, that. And that was a way that we could have, things in our store that, because there was so little for us to buy that we were interested in. And we had, so that was, so I'll say in the very beginning, we had made a challenge for ourselves we wouldn't buy anything with a logo on the outside.
Yeah.
We wouldn't do it. And so that was also very limiting.
Yeah. And eventually there was a first design, a first drawing.
Yeah.
And I want to know if that's the beat. Is it the beat frame that was the first design?
Yeah, it is the beat. You probably want to know what it looked like.
Well, we're going to be superimposing some images, I think. So we'll have it showing here at some point. But you can describe what it looks like if you'd like.
No. I thought maybe you were wondering if our drawings were like pristine,
Yes, I would love to know. Yeah.
Well, please, they don't. They look. I mean, I am the worst. If there's a word called drawer in the world, my drawings look like scratches. However, in high school, I had taken a drafting class. I was the only girl in a drafting class, and at that time they were electives. Another word, I'm not sure.
Yep, we got that here too. Yep.
They were short. And so you had two electives, in a year, so they lasted just a semester or a quarter or something like that, whatever it was called. And I loved it. But I was, but so I learned how to make a drawing, I learned how to make a basic mechanical drawing. And truthfully, what I loved were the pencils. And at the time, the drafting tables were so fabulous. And I loved graph paper and, all the things that attracted me to it. So I did know how to make a basic mechanical drawing.
Yeah.
I am in no way an illustrator. I'm in no way, and nor is Barbara, we're not artists of the drawn frame.
But I'm wondering, maybe eventually as the collection evolved, as you had the beat, which was your first frame, but then subsequently, I'm sure you had other designs as we are here, maybe 42 years later with LA Eyeworks. What comes first, the idea or the material? Or I guess my question is exactly that, but it's kind of in the broader term, and I know it could be more fluid because there's all kinds of different designs, but how do you work with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a nice, it's nice to reflect on that, and sometimes it comes, honestly, something can be. There are times when a frame is really built of color, that you feel the intensity of some color, and the color takes the form and shape of the frame. And there are other times when, there's just a line. You saw a line, or you were scribbling with your pencil, and that line took the cue and said, that's what it's going to be. So it really can come, and then the exploration. By now we've been through the learning of, I can say when titanium first came on the market, into the manufacturing, it was so exciting. So, you just wanted to explore titanium as new materials and new technologies come. Those are exciting, and sometimes they lead you, and sometimes it's the challenge of a material that you just want to take something somewhere else. And I can say, or in a case of a frame like the frame you're wearing, the XOX, sometimes you just want to solder something as many times as you can, or you want to, you're playing with early laser and you want to just, you're trying to figure out how to apply it to eyewear. And those things now are all taken for granted, but from 40 some years ago, we've gone through all of those, sort of pushing each time. Now, having said that, our interest in the technology has never been to say, okay, I want to make the lightest frame possible with this and this. We've approached it from just pushing material and, pushing it, whether it's into a texture or into a shape or a form or a decoration. I'm not afraid of that word. So those are how materials interest us.
Yeah, I think that's really cool because it kind of comes back to how you guys were experimenting with drills and sandblasting and all that. It kind of sounds to me like you're using the technology that's coming into the eyewear industry as like a way to experiment. Like, oh, we can do laser cutting now. Like, what can we do with that? And you brought up the XOX, which is what I'm wearing at the moment, from 1991. So yeah, that would be a good example to know, like, did you think, oh, it would be so cute to have these XOXO, or did you have the manufacturing abilities and say like, oh, well, given this ability, let's try to do something like this? Like, how did this specific frame come to be?
Yes, well, the way that was an evolution. So before the XOX, we were using the idea of the lens shape and the brow line separation. And we found it incredibly fascinating to use that space between the eye. I'm not sure whether you're calling this, and some people call it an eye rim, some people call it an eye wire. Our word is eye wire. That is the shape that holds the lens. So the shape that the eye wire and the brow separation said, oh my God, look at this. There's all this room in here to explore. And that came, honestly, from looking at ironwork. Los Angeles was full of wrought iron workers that, and then you'd always see their little sign on a fence, and it would say Martinez or Gonzalez, or, and they would have a great little something that looked like a license plate, and they'd put it on their fence when they were finished. And everyone would have, I started to look at them carefully, and everyone would have some little symbol of the ironwork that they were doing. And I thought, oh man, this is so cool. I want to pay homage to this Los Angeles thing. And so that's how it was really born. And that was using that space between the brow piece and the eye wire as a place to explore, this ironwork of Los Angeles. So in the beginning, there were frames like Carmen and Caruso, Bolero, and they were you could see the little work that was in there in between. And it just continued. We used that space to talk about freedom of choice. We've used that space to make glasses for the Statue of Liberty, to see love. And then it just seemed time to just say XOX. We just need to, this is an XOX. It's time to send the love out.
Yes, and I love it. And in these times more than ever, this frame is so important to me. So I really thank you for it.
You said something incredibly lovely earlier, Naomie, and that was that for right now with a mask, that particular frame was saying what you wanted to say without being able to express fully from the lower half of your face. And completely, I mean, see, I just got chills again saying that, because that's what we think it's all about. I mean, I think we're trying to connect. So Eyewear has such infinite possibilities in that, and it's like good, clean fun. It's.
I have one more question about another specific frame, and then we can move on to other things. But I was really wondering about and this is by the request of several people, colleagues and friends of mine, who are also wondering about the James Bondo frame from back in the day. We're wondering, well, I always thought that frame was interesting because it kind of evolved to the Bondo and the Bondito, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I always wondered how you came with the idea of those little notches. Because that to me seems like something, it's either like the chicken or the egg, like what came first, like the idea to make that or the sort of ability to fabricate.
Well, it's so nice because I'm so happy that you see that and that you find interest. And that's why I love talking to you, Naomie. I so appreciate your curiosity, and it's exuberant and it's contagious. So thank you for those wonderful questions. Actually, the Bondo came first, and the Bondo came, which was the bigger one.
Yep.
The Bondo came because prior to that, we'd made a series of frames that we wanted to minimize everything on the frame. And at the time, all of the rim locks, and I'm not, is that a word that you're, so all of the rim locks were hidden behind the end piece.
Right, yeah.
Or you had a curved end piece and they went on to the edge of the end piece, and they were all hidden in that way. And we had worked on a design that we really wanted to minimize all of that, and the only place to put the rim lock was on the eye wire, and it was perfect. It was honest. It was right, and yet we took so much flack for it. Like everybody said, you can't put the rim lock on the rim. Yeah, of course we can, because I don't want to hide it. This is like, it's honest. And that was really the intention there. So. Not only that, but let's place that rim lock in a place that, knocks the shape a little bit. And where would that be? Well, first time out, it was right about here, which takes, if you put a rim lock down in that quadrant, you can throw off a round or a P3 kind of shape in a really nice way. You take away the droopiness, you just give something. Such a simple gesture. Or if you put it up top, you also can lift something up in a great way with it's just a little nod to knock that shape off a little bit. And so we were so pleased with putting our rim lock there is how it began. Well, so much flack, wonderful success on the frame to the community, but to the optical industry, it was just like, oh my God, it was like, stuff of gossip. You just can't do that. And so in response to that, we said, you know what? This has been so good. This is so fun. We're just going to put those rim locks around the entire frame. And that's how it was born. And for an extra added treat, we put a rim lock inside the temple with an extra screw in it. And it was our little, it was our little screw you kind of thing, but it was an extra screw.
Wow.
And it was all in, So, and of course, people loved it. And that's how it really began.
And they still love it today. It's great.
They love it. They love it today. And Bondo, so we called it Bondo. We were sort of in bondage. We put that eye wire in bondage, and then we called it Bondo.
Yeah.
And so as it evolved, it became, then we had to do the James Bondo, we had to do the Bondito, and that was just giving them, taking them down, really small and playing with the shape.
That is so awesome. I was like, I didn't want to have expectations about what the story would be, but that is like far better than anything I could have ever imagined. Like that is so awesome because it is true to your rebellious nature, I feel.
Well, and Naomie, the really cool thing is that every one of those, and we used real uncut rim locks, and every one of those is soldered on. It's not like a notch and a cut on a machine. It's actually a soldered on rim lock.
So cool. And I mean, from what we've discussed so far, I can tell that you fly by the seat of your pants, but you fly by the seat of your own pants. Like, you're doing your own thing. I've mentioned a few times already in this chat, but you guys are going on 40 something years of business. And I think that is just the most incredible thing, especially in these times that things are a little bit more ephemeral. And I want to tie this in with another passion of yours, which I have read and heard you talk about on a couple occasions, but and a lot of eyewear wearers will already know that the temple tips of your frames are inspired by the Australian tree frog that has little like nubs for fingers, for fingertips. So the little like, we'll have an image showing it, but it has a little circular tip at the end. So I know that the cold-blooded animals have been a very big theme in your life, as you've already raised several desert tortoises in your life. You can tell us how many. I would love to know.
I think, well, I've hatched 23.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
23 eggs, and I had to stop because
you were starting a farm.
Well, yes, I now have 5.
Okay.
But we had to find homes for all those babies that hatched from eggs. Yeah.
That is so incredible. And I've heard you say before that when frogs shed their skin, it's kind of similar to when we put on a new piece of eyewear and we're sort of reinventing ourselves. So when the frog sheds their skin, or snakes shed their skin as well, it's kind of like a reinvention of themselves. They're starting anew. And when we put on glasses, we feel anew. And I was wondering how the raising of tortoises from eggs has influenced or shaped in any way the way that you have cared for LA Eyeworks over all these years.
Yeah, that's such. I love your angles. It's so good. Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's this. The tortoises go to sleep. They sleep in the winter. That's called bruminating, and it's just a deep, deep, quiet. And it's just this side. The heartbeat slows down. Everything slows down. It's just this side of it's like a hibernation to a bear, but there's a very deep breathing that you feel when that's happening, and it's like ancient something. It's just ancient something, and you feel it, and when they wake up in the spring. It's just like, oh, you just can't believe it. You just cannot believe that ancient feeling that's from that deep, being has just woken up. So how does that relate to LA Eyeworks? I think it's the cycles, it's just that beauty and magnificence of life, and how you relate it to the care for LA Eyeworks. I could only say that, to take care of it, take care of it, pay attention, and that it needs the time to do those kinds of things. And also, we're incredibly persistent, and we're incredibly optimistic, and so those kinds of things. I think that to wake up after 4 months of sleep there's optimism in that. So I think for me, there's just a perfect relationship.
Well, you've mentioned before that you guys work a lot, and that your personal life is your work life. Do you, like your tortoises, have some time to rest and recoup and replenish, or is it pretty much go, go, go? Because you are saying that you're very persistent as well.
No. So I have no time, no problem having fun. I mean, really. So no. there's always time for fun. And that can be, just doesn't, no, absolutely. I mean, of course we work, go. But no, you have to, that time out for fun is just as important as it is for the high power that you put in for the work. I truly believe in that. And it's always been, and even if I've not found a way to have a vacation for a long spell, I can find a way to have, 5 concerts and 16 dinners with friends. So, it's just always time for fun. And I do check out, meaning in that fun, that's a check out.
Yeah.
Fun is full on. So
that's great advice for us all, and that finding that balance and being able to recoup and regenerate and re-inspire. Yeah. And so what would you attribute the success over the years? Well, one thing is, there's nothing like being in business with your best friend. I mean, that's just like, what? Even people say that, don't be in business with family, don't be in business with friends. I find that to be completely the antithesis of anything. So there's that. And I think just that, I would attribute the success to the fact that, to our community. I mean, they've given us so much. We've learned so much. We've continued to learn so much from them. And the interests grow deeper from them, with them. And, the ability to remain, curious. I mean, that's been Barbara, this is just her thing is, be curious. Like, how can we, be curious? What is that? And I think I would attribute it to that, really. Yeah. Yeah, kind of like what you have in your backdrop there. That's sort of something to like consistently be discovering and finding out more about, and sort of keeping the ball rolling. That's really incredible. Naomi, there's one more thing, and I think I don't know if you and I have ever spoken about this or not, but I think also, there's a point in everyone's career, if you're like rocketing or going slowly, where it's so critical to not let your successes burden you. And if you are a person who needs to remain nimble, success sometimes can bring a lot of challenges, huge, so they can, in lots of ways. I mean, they can bring pressure to perform. They can bring, pressure to do it again better. They can, the monetary challenges, the going bigger and bigger, that kind of thing. And so, those came to us early. Like, we knew, how can we not let this success like make us tighter and smaller in some way, that feeling of constraint, to be expansive with your success in some way, and to be, humble in a way, humble. And I say, to be humble, but to have a feeling of humility about it, so that there's a way that it's freeing and liberating instead of constraining. So that if I were in an advice kind of giving thing and I had a wizardly stick, I would just say, let your successes be liberating, not tie you down. Wow. So profound. Oh. I just really heard that in a very profound way. So thank you so much. And that was a future question, is advice. So that was perfect. Oh. Okay. Perfect. And that's just a really great way to sort of like encapsulate the conversation. But there was actually some few things that I meant to mention at the beginning that I forgot to mention. But it's not even to mention, it's mostly to give a context to how we know each other, how we've met in the past. Yeah. And I think it's really cool and interesting, actually, because the first time we ever met, you probably don't remember, but I'll tell the story, is that we met at Vision Expo 2 years ago. years ago at Vision Expo East in New York. And I was with my coordinator, Danielle Cloutier, and one of our teachers, Julie Bécoté, and we walked up to you at the booth. And so what people might not know, or they know very well, is that you're often very upfront in the booth. You don't really hide at the back, or sometimes when you're doing things, but most of the time you're upfront and saying hello to people. And I just sort of like ran up with Danielle and Julie and was just like, let's go say hi to Gai. And we went up to say hi to you. And, you know, you talked to us about Montreal, which I was so surprised about because, I don't know, you could have just not. And it was just really important to me because it's actually a trip that happens every year at our school that Danielle and the rest of the team puts together for the students. So along with this conference that we're putting out this month is trying to invigorate our young opticians to discover new things and to discover eyewear, independent eyewear especially. So every year they have this trip where we can go to New York and go to Vision Expo and meet legends like you. So I mean, really. And then we've subsequently met later on, but it's just kind of like was a marker, and that was like the beginning of my schooling career. So things have been going pretty fast since, and so I mean, in retrospect, things are just very chill, but I still feel like I'm going in an upward trajectory, and what you've just said as advice earlier, like really, really hit home. So I really appreciate you and everything, and I really appreciate you taking the time. I had like
No, it's been my pleasure. Thank you. Yeah.
And I guess I'd also like to know, what can we expect this season, this year, next year with LA Eyeworks? Is there anything coming out? Are you guys working on anything at all?
Well, we are. In fact, just on the drawing table, we're going to introduce a sunglass collection for a capsule for the fall. Well, actually, spring 2022.
Yes.
And we haven't done a sunglass collection for a number of years. It was just time to take a break. So that's in the wings. And I'm really excited about it. So that'll introduce in the late fall of 2021 for spring of 22. And we have I guess I'm most excited about the sunglasses.
Well, I'm actually curious now. How is it different designing sunglasses than it is designing ophthalmic glasses?
Well, we've always approached in the past, we've approached our sunglass collection as ophthalmic, because we were designing for the optical industry.
Right.
And mostly our sunglasses were sold in optical stores. So, that's what led us to had us stop, was that a lot of sunglass collections are designed to be sold, in department stores or boutiques or fashion stores and like that. And we just kept our path straight going about how we would do it. And that was our market. So right now, we're going back at it as with the target to our optical customer.
Yeah.
But also, I think it opens up, there's more freedom.
Yeah.
That, I think this time around that I'm not so concerned that it could be, that it is RXable or not.
Yeah.
If it is, it is great. If it isn't, that's okay. Where in the past, I was, completely focused on the fact that it would need to be, suitable for an optical, to make prescription lenses for. So that's liberating, and that in a lot of ways for a lot of reasons. And I think, also price becomes a factor. People, if you're looking at something that is not going to you're not going to put an RX in, perhaps it can't cost as much as, something does, which is there's not necessarily logic in it, but if you're not able to, it may mean that it just should cost less, because it was less expensive to make. And so that would reflect that, and that would be fine. And it's just opening that door and saying, okay, that's okay. If this works, then that's great. Then we can make it cost less as well. So, those are some of the considerations.
That's so cool. And I have to say that in general with LA Eyeworks, I've heard from other colleagues as well, is the fact that you guys are opticians at the base of it. So you're optician first off, then designers, and the eyewear is always very thoughtful for prescriptions. And that's the ultimate.
Yeah, thank you for saying. Well, Barbara and I consider we are opticians. That's where we're born. That's where it came from. So, yeah.
Do you guys still practice today, or less so?
In fairness, very occasionally.
Yeah.
But I've got my chops.
Yeah, sure. You don't lose them that easily.
No, the thing that you do that I am rusty on is just keeping. But I make it a point to keep as current as possible through my colleagues. But in lens technology, those are those beauties, because boy, there's such gorgeous lenses available.
Of course. Thank you so much, Gai. Through this conversation, I just keep having radical humility coming through. I'm just hearing radical humility. So just thank you so much for imparting this on us. I know that we're a gang of us that are fans of yours. And I think if I've learned anything, it's just staying true to your curiosity, to your fun and rebellious nature, but also keeping the integrity of the optical and medical side of the industry as well. So it's a beautiful marriage of all those things. So I just really want to thank you so much.
Thank you. It's really been my pleasure. Naomie, I did have one more thing. When you were saying that, I wanted to bring it up earlier also, but it seems at the moment to resonate. And that seeing is a full body experience. Part of the conversation also, when you're fitting lenses or you're fitting eyewear or fitting a frame, it's really about, what are you doing in life? How do you use these? Are you, how does it work for you? And so that's that beauty of, you just can't look at yourself in a little hand mirror, stand up, you need to walk around, you need to go outside, you need to see yourself in light, you need to know how you, do you kiss with your glasses on? What do you do in your glasses? Some people do everything, and other people, just do it in small little fragments. So just in remembering that seeing is a whole body experience, and
absolutely. And I think as opticians, we really end up getting into people's lives, right? We really end up getting, last semester, I was having a bit of issues with that actually, because I was feeling bad asking people what they were doing in their day. And it was at the clinic at school, and I had patients coming in, and a lot of the patients coming in were older folks in the community that were coming in. And I was having a hard time asking them what they were doing in their day-to-day. And my teacher was making it clear to me that we're only asking these questions, not because we're nosy, but because we really want to best serve them and offer them the best products for them. And I just felt bad because I know that people are home maybe doing not much. They're being isolated from their families. They're not going to their community centers the way they were before. And so I was having, a tough time with that. But I'm overcoming it. And I think it's a beautiful thing in the end, because you end up having this really, whether you like it or not, you end up having sort of a personal and deep conversation about their day to day, but is so important because it's really their lives, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's it. That's it. And And so on that note, also your intuition is never put that to bed, because your intuition is the guide, and you'll know how deeply to go with your questioning. But yes, an opportunity. And for those who are interested, and that's an incredible thing, that seeing is the whole the whole body experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're ultimately like bettering people's lives with these beautiful pieces of artwork on our face, right? So in the end, it's a win-win for everybody.
I feel it.
Yes. This was so good. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Naomie. Yeah.
It's a wrap.
Alors, on aura la suite la semaine prochaine parce que je vous invite à être au rendez-vous. La semaine prochaine, il y aura Gora de VM l'Atelier qui sera avec nous. Et puisque Naomie, vous a fait allusion à Zaha, qui est sa création, eh bien, on en parlera un peu plus en profondeur la semaine dernière avec Gora qui qu'est-ce que j'ai dit la semaine dernière? Eh mon Dieu! La semaine prochaine, qui, à la fin de sa conférence, vous parlera du processus en collaboration avec Naomie. Alors, c'est un rendez-vous pour la semaine prochaine. Je vous remercie grandement d'avoir été là. Merci, Naomie.
Merci.
Ciao.
Merci tout le monde.